Sup flappers, welcome back to another video, and yes, we have him, Ayato, today front and center. He's going to be the start of today's show. We're going to be talking about his strength, weaknesses, good, bad, but no ugly. I can tell you guys right now, if you're here for a general summary, Ayato is a well-rounded character, and I'm going to go into detail more in the video, but I do think he is worth looking into a little more than just, is he a must pull, right? Because I don't think anyone is a must pull, and we should really stop with the mindset that any character deserves to be on this must pull tier list. It doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. But Ayato is a great character overall, whether you're a veteran or you're a newer player to the game. I do think it's worth picking up, or at the very least looking into if he can fulfill certain roles in your current rosters. Anyways, let's get into the video though. My name is Erotic Walrus. Like, subscribe, it's free, and I hope to see what you guys think about Ayato yourselves in the comments down below. So first things first, we have to talk about Ayato's combat. Now his combat is much like his character design in game. It fulfills the role of an aristocrat, being that he's very diplomatic even in his combat and kit. He is well-rounded in his combat style. He has quick slashes that deal good damage while also putting a great emphasis on reaction. At the same time, his burst offers utility but also doesn't overdo it in the damage department. So he covers everything, and of course, being a Hydro unit, he's also slap damn right in the middle between some of the most powerful reactions in the game. So truly fitting of an aristocrat theme over here, as well as being extremely diplomatic in how his kit functions within games. So your next question would probably be like, well, Walrus, then what do you mean by it he's not a must pull? What do you mean that he is not god tier? Well, the thing is, I do find that Ayato, let's start with his elemental skill, right? His elemental skill, while being great, it has a relatively short infusion window. Alongside that, I've noticed, I guess this is something you'll get better with over time, is that the range, I'm talking about the distance between you and the enemy. Once the enemy leaves a certain distance, his normal attacks doesn't hit them anymore. So there is some sort of AI assisted targeting going on over here, and I'm getting used to it, but just know that it could be a little frustrating and it could be very costly if you misgauge the distance between yourself and the enemy, and you, let's say, end up wasting 2 slashes on nothing but air, like looking like the Indiana Jones ninja guy or whatever. You just look stupid, and it's a very wasteful thing to end up doing. And let me tell you, it can happen quite a lot, especially during the time when you're trying to reposition yourself, or when you're trying to use the movement keys to redirect your attacks. These kind of mistakes can happen because your field of vision is limited. So let's say you know there's an enemy roughly to your 5 o'clock, and you're turning around to try to use Ayato to hit the enemy, and you realize, oh damn, the enemy's actually a little further away than you thought they were. Well, now you're gonna have to dash forward and then continue your normal attacks. These are tiny things, but they do feel like it punishes you quite a bit, especially with the short infusion window. Granted, the uptime to his elemental skill is pretty good, and even when you bring him off field, as long as he's under a certain amount of energy, his second talent is going to help him regenerate his burst skill, which overall, that's, again, I keep going back to this, is that it's a very well-rounded kit that adds nicely to what this character ultimately does, which is damage and utility and kind of support. So in a way, I do feel like a grid comparison to make with Ayato is kind of like Hu Tao. There is infusion in their elemental skills, but the thing is, Hu Tao is single target and she does a lot of it. Ayato cannot keep up in Hu Tao when it comes to single target. When it comes to group enemies, Ayato of course takes the cake, and at the same time, in exchange for power, he is able to hit more than one enemy very easily, whereas Hu Tao really has to skewer all her enemies into one go, which is incredibly difficult to do in certain scenarios. And of course, fighting more elite monsters, you just can't dash through them, you kind of get stuck on them, so you end up really hitting just one unit. So in exchange for that, Ayato is able to hit many enemies. However, I do think Ayato has the better trade-off here, being the Hydro element as well. So of course, his infusion window is also much shorter, and you'll hear me bring this point up quite often, also going forward into future Ayato videos, is his short infusion window. You can definitely make the best of what it is, and it's more than enough to take care of business. However, it's definitely a more punishing playstyle for players who are prone to making micro mistakes or are more careless in their playstyles. Now we can talk about his burst skill. So Ayato's burst skill I have found to be an incredible part of his kit, even though it's sitting at a whopping 80 cost. With his second talent, you do make up a little bit of energy regen, but definitely it's noticeably difficult to bring his uptime any higher without some sort of energy generation support. So that brings us to certain characters, but you know, you're gonna end up running double either Hydro or running some Favonius weapons on some of your other characters on the team, and depending on what type of teams you're running, it's going to be difficult to match certain characters with Favonius weapons. Granted, to be quite honest with you guys, I haven't found a big issue with his energy generation. It's just, you know, it's there, and sometimes you feel like, oh, I wish his bursts were up in this scenario, it's going to be perfect, but it's not up, and you know it's because of the 80 cost and the lack of energy generation within the team. So with all that being said, is it a big problem though? Absolutely not, because his burst lasts an eternity. It just feels like it never stops. It's like an albedo elemental skill, which is saying a lot about its uptime. All right, so here's the thing with Ayato. He also is able to play with every single type of hydro reaction as well. He can play vaporize, he can play freeze, he can play electro charge. Now granted, some of these are going to be better than other options, but to be quite frank with you, a big problem with vaporize with Ayato, my original fear was they're going to put some sort of unreasonably high internal cooldown on Ayato, but I've come to find that due to his fast hydro attacks along with his burst skill and his normal slashes being hydro, it just, there's no pyro character or pyro application for that matter that is fast enough to keep up with this. Like sometimes I feel like he's attacking maybe like even 2.5 times per second. How are you gonna get a pyro application to stick that fast? So he ends up vaping, I don't know, like every third, fourth hit or something like that. I didn't count it, but it just feels like he's hitting so damn fast to the point where currently I feel like it's unreasonable to say that he should be able to vape every single hit, right? And we just don't have the tools necessary to even apply that much pyro to make sure he is able to vape every hit. Now, if there is a reaction in the future, I don't know, maybe like if the enemies were set ablaze, or like I guess you can call them burning or something like that, and hydro attacks don't end up removing the burning effect, hey, maybe in the future there is a possibility, maybe not every single hit, but for maybe every other hit for Ayato can vaporize. I don't know, just throwing stuff out there into the abyss, right? I hope Hoyoverse is not listening to this or anything, but I'm just saying there is potential in the future for some sort of better pyro application and more consistent pyro application that leans more into Ayato's wheelhouse, but currently Vaporize is going to be every third hit or so. And of course, Vaporize is not everything. We got freeze teams that are very potent on Ayato as well, since he's just a walking hydro machine, right? He's a walking wet status applicator, and it doesn't matter if you're men, women, or Hilichurl or whatever. He's gonna apply wet status on you, and you're pretty much done. And I found a lot of fun playing Ganyu with them as well as Ayaka. In fact, I play both of them on the same team with Ayato, as I just feel like canonically it feels wrong not to play Ayaka with Ayato, and game design wise you'd be doing yourself a huge disfavor if you don't pair Ganyu with Ayato's burst skill. So overall, I find that his kit is well rounded in all aspects. Of course, we also have the electro charge teams, so I won't go into details regarding the teams. I just want you guys to know that all of these teams work really well with him, and if you're picking this character up, he's going to benefit not just the veteran players but also for newer players as well, as he is a DPS oriented character who hits AoE, so it doesn't matter for overworld because he is reliant on his elemental skill for infusion as opposed to his burst skill, so you don't need to charge up his burst just to do damage. So he's very easy to use in the overworld, and in the abyss, due to his flexibility. You can slap him as a carry in many different teams and he'll do fine. For players who are earlier and only have like Fischl and stuff, like some Electro, you can do Electro Charge with them. Or you have Zhangli, you can do Vaporize, right, with Sucrose, or with Kazuha, Venti, if you have those characters. And of course, if you have someone like Kaya, or if you have someone like Ganyu, Ayaka, of course, then play your freeze team. So he's a connecting piece to a bunch of different characters. And to be honest with you guys, I do think he's going to be a great pickup for the general players. He's not as punishing as the Tartaglia, whereas he's just as quick and flashy, in my honest opinion. I do prefer Ayato's Elemental Infusion as opposed to Tartaglia's, and that's just my personal opinion. He's not going to be able to outperform Tartaglia in certain teams, that I can tell for sure, but at the same time, he willingly gives up those options to be a more flexible character with more utility built into his kit as opposed to raw damage and Tartaglia. And of course, Tartaglia has his huge downside with his Elemental Infusion, so it's a trade-off. Personally, between him and Tartaglia, I would pick Ayato. I like these more rounded characters. It just makes me feel like that the investment I've put in is more worthwhile overall. All right, with that said, thank you guys so much. Comment down below what you think of Ayato. Are you pulling him? Are you skipping him? Who are you looking forward to? And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, urge you all to stay safe and peace.